She once laughed and said, "You'll never be him." Maybe she was right, because now, I'm something more. And when she showed up crying outside my office, I finally understood, losing me was her biggest mistake. I still remember the sound of that night, the quiet hum of the city outside my apartment window, the steady ticking of the wall clock, and the storm that refused to die inside my chest. It had been raining for hours, but I didn't notice until my phone buzzed. One message, that's all it took to ruin everything I thought I knew about love. "You deserve the truth. He's been seeing her for months." I froze. My hands trembled as I stared at the message from an unknown number. I didn't even have to ask who it was about. I already knew. A part of me wanted to laugh, maybe it was a prank, maybe someone was jealous of us. After all, Adam and I were the couple everyone envied. The kind of love that looked perfect on the outside. But deep down, something inside me cracked. I opened my gallery and scrolled through our pictures, birthdays, vacations, smiles that now looked staged. I stopped at one photo, him, arms wrapped around me, whispering, "You're my forever." My chest tightened. Forever, huh? I grabbed my coat and left the apartment before my mind could talk me out of it. The rain was cold, but not colder than what I was feeling inside. I didn't know where I was going, maybe to his place, maybe to find proof, maybe just to stop pretending everything was fine. By the time I reached his office building, the lights were still on. It was past 11 p.m. The security guard gave me a strange look, but I smiled and said, "I'm just here to pick something up." He let me in. My footsteps echoed through the marble hallway. The air smelled like coffee and lies. When I reached his office, I heard voices. Hers and his. I froze just outside the door. "Adam," her voice, soft, playful, "what if she finds out?" "She won't," he said, chuckling. "She trusts me too much." Every word felt like a knife sinking deeper into my chest. I pushed the door open before I even realized what I was doing. They both froze. She stepped back, her face pale. Adam's smile disappeared, replaced by shock. "Lena," he stammered. "Don't stop on my account," I said, my voice trembling. "Go on. Tell her how stupid I am." He moved toward me, but I stepped back. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. "Lena, it's not what it looks like." I laughed. "Oh? Then what is it, Adam? A team-building exercise?" His secretary, her, grabbed her purse and rushed out, brushing past me. I didn't stop her. When the door closed, silence filled the room. Only the rain outside dared to speak. He rubbed his face. "I was going to tell you. It just happened." I stared at him, searching for the man I loved. But all I saw was a stranger. "Was it worth it?" I whispered. "All those lies? The promises?" He didn't answer. That silence, that cowardly silence, told me everything. Something inside me died right then. I walked toward the door, but before I left, I turned back. "You know what's funny, Adam? You said you'd never hurt me. But you didn't break my heart, you taught me how to never trust again." Then I walked out, letting the door slam behind me. That night, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but no tears came. Instead, I sat on my bed, staring at the city lights outside, feeling my old self slowly fade away. Maybe heartbreak doesn't destroy you. Maybe it shapes you into someone else. Someone colder. Someone stronger. Someone who learns that sometimes, revenge isn't about hurting them, it's about becoming someone they can never touch again. The world thought I was fine. I smiled at work, answered calls, even laughed at jokes. But inside, I was a storm brewing quietly, waiting for the right moment. Adam kept texting me, "We need to talk, it's not what you think, please, Lena, I made a mistake." I ignored every message. But I didn't block him. Not yet. Because I wanted him to see me rise. I started going to the gym, joined a business workshop, and reconnected with people I'd lost touch with, especially Noah, an old friend who used to work with me before Adam came into my life. Noah was the opposite of Adam, calm, honest, and impossible to lie to. "You look different," he said one evening when we met for coffee. stronger. I smiled faintly. Maybe I finally see things clearly. He studied me for a moment. You're planning something, aren't you? I looked away, pretending to laugh. What makes you think that? He leaned forward. Because you have that look, the one people get right before they change everything. I didn't answer. But he was right. Because I had a plan. Adam wasn't just my ex. He was also my former business partner. We had started a small marketing agency together, and though my name wasn't on the papers, his was. I was the one who built everything from scratch. And now, I wanted it back. Every idea, every client, every ounce of respect I helped him earn, I wanted it all returned. Not through tears. Through success. That's when I realized, revenge didn't have to be loud. It could be silent, elegant, and poetic. So, I made a promise to myself that night. I will rebuild everything he stole from me, bigger, better, and brighter. And when he finally looks at me again, he won't see the woman he betrayed. He'll see the woman he lost forever. By the end of the week, I had already taken the first step, registering my own company. Name, Phoenix Media. Because I wasn't starting over. I was rising. I thought starting my own company would make me feel lighter. It didn't. Every morning, I woke up early, stared at the ceiling, and told myself, today will be different. But every night, I found myself thinking about him. About the way he said my name, like it meant something, until it didn't. People said time heals everything. I disagreed. Time just teaches you how to hide your scars better. The first day at Phoenix Media felt strange. The office was small, one room, 2 desks, and a view of the parking lot, but it was mine. No more walking into Adam's fancy glass office. No more pretending I was just an assistant when I was actually the mind behind every project. I remember my first client, a bakery owner named Mrs. Collins. She was kind, warm, and nervous. "You're sure you can handle my social campaign?" she asked, clutching her folder like it was a life raft. I smiled. "Mrs. Collins, I rebuilt brands that were falling apart. I think I can handle a bakery." She chuckled softly. "You remind me of someone who's been through a lot, dear." I paused. Maybe I have. That night, after she left, I sat alone in my tiny office. The rain started again, soft, steady, familiar. I hated the rain. Because the night he broke me, it rained just like this. 2 years ago. It was our anniversary. I'd spent the whole week planning a surprise for him, a dinner, candles, even a stupid slideshow of our memories. When he came home, he looked distracted. "Lena, we need to talk," he said. I smiled nervously. "After dinner? I made your favorite." He shook his head. "Now." I still remember the way his voice cracked, like he wanted to sound strong but couldn't. I sat down, the excitement draining out of me. "Okay. What is it?" He avoided my eyes. "I don't think this is working anymore." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I just don't feel the same way," he muttered. "It's not you. I just need space." "Space?" I whispered. "We've been together for 3 years, Adam." "You said." "I know what I said," he snapped, then sighed. "You're amazing, Lena. But I can't help it if my heart's changed." I stared at him, searching for the man who once promised forever. All I saw was a stranger with tired eyes. "Is there someone else?" I asked quietly. He hesitated, that tiny pause, that was my answer. My hands went cold. "Who is she?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She's someone from work." "The secretary," I whispered. He flinched. "Lena, please don't make this harder than it already is." "Harder?" I laughed bitterly. "You destroy everything we built, and I'm the one making it harder?" He looked away, silent. That silence was worse than shouting. It was the sound of love dying. I stood up, tears burning in my eyes. "You know what hurts the most, Adam? You could have told me before I started planning a life around you. Before I believed your words. He didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at the floor. So, I did the one thing I swore I'd never do, I begged. Please, don't do this, I whispered. We can fix it. I'll forgive you. Just, don't leave. He closed his eyes, his jaw tight. It's over, Lena. I still remember the way my voice broke when I said, then go. He walked out, taking my heart with him, leaving behind a ghost that would haunt me for years. Back to present. The sound of rain brought me back. I blinked away the memory and reached for my mug. The coffee was cold, again. I looked at the photo on my desk, me, smiling at a client event from years ago. I barely recognized that girl anymore. Knock, knock. I looked up. Sophia stood at the door, my younger sister, her smile soft but knowing. You look like someone who hasn't slept in 3 days, she said, walking in with 2 coffees. 2.5, actually, I murmured, taking the cup. She sat across from me. Still thinking about him? I didn't answer. She sighed. Lena, you have to stop giving your nights to someone who doesn't even deserve your thoughts. I met her eyes. I'm not thinking about him. I'm thinking about how to beat him. That made her pause. Beat him? I smiled faintly. In business, of course. She laughed softly. That's my sister. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, you know, I always told you he wasn't the one. I rolled my eyes. Yes, you did. You can say it. I told you so. She grinned. I would, but I like this new version of you, the one who builds instead of breaks. Her words stayed with me long after she left. 3 months later. Phoenix Media was growing faster than I expected. We had 3 new clients, a small team, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. But success has a cruel sense of humor. Because the moment you start rising, your past finds a way to show up again. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Marcus, my marketing assistant, walked into my office holding a file. You might want to see this. What's up? I asked. He handed me the folder. New potential client. Wants a joint campaign with another agency. Which one? He hesitated. Eclipse Advertising. I froze. That name, that cursed name, was his company. For a second, the air left my lungs. You're kidding, I said quietly. No, Marcus replied carefully. They reached out this morning. Apparently, they don't know you're connected to the founder. I forced a laugh. Connected? That's one way to put it. He studied me. Do you want me to decline? I shook my head slowly. No. Set up the meeting. Are you sure? Absolutely. Because this time, I wasn't the one who'd be caught off guard. At the meeting. The conference room smelled like fresh paint and tension. My palms were sweating, but my face was calm. I wore confidence like armor. When the door opened, he walked in, Adam. The same sharp jawline, the same calculating eyes. But something was different. He looked tired. His gaze froze when he saw me. Lena. I smiled politely. Adam. The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. Marcus began the introductions, completely unaware of the storm brewing between us. When he finished, I said, shall we begin? Adam cleared his throat. Yes, let's. For the next 20 minutes, we spoke like strangers, polite, formal, professional. If anyone had walked in, they'd think we were old colleagues, not ex-lovers turned rivals. But beneath the surface, every word was a battlefield. When the meeting ended, Marcus and the others left the room. Only we remained. He spoke first. You look different. I should hope so, I said, standing. It's been 2 years. He nodded slowly. You've done well for yourself. Thank you, I replied. I learned from the best. His eyes softened. Lena, I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed quietly. You didn't mean to cheat either, right? He looked away, guilt flickering across his face. It was a mistake. Yeah, I said coldly. You were. I walked past him, stopping at the door. By the way, Adam, next time you try to steal one of my clients, at least do your research. I'm not the same woman who used to believe your lies. He opened his mouth to say something, but I was already gone. At that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, not the man who betrayed me, but the man who used to hold my hand when I was scared of thunderstorms. It made me angry, that after everything, he still had space in my thoughts. So I did what I always did when the pain got too heavy, I opened my journal. I wrote. He taught me that love can turn cruel, that promises can rot, and that hearts don't break, they harden. But maybe I needed him to lose me, so I could finally find myself. I closed the book and leaned back. The rain had stopped, and the night felt calm again. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't the end between us. Not yet. Because karma, like me, had just begun her work. It was quiet that Thursday afternoon. My office felt unusually empty, just the hum of the air conditioner and the soft click of my keyboard. I was reviewing a client proposal when a sudden knock on the door froze me mid-sentence. Come in, I said, without looking up. The knock came again, louder this time. Hesitation, almost reverence, in the sound. I glanced toward the door, expecting one of my assistants or perhaps a courier. And then I saw her. No. Not her. Adam stood there. Wet hair plastered to his forehead, the faint scent of rain clinging to him. His eyes widened when he saw me, and for a moment, I thought I might have hallucinated. Adam, I whispered, my voice catching somewhere between disbelief and warning. I need to talk, he said, stepping inside. His shoes left faint wet footprints across my polished floor, but I barely noticed. I stayed where I was, chair tilted slightly backward, arms crossed. About what? About us, he muttered, and I could hear the old hesitation in his voice, the same one that had haunted me 2 years ago. I laughed quietly, bitter and sharp. Us? My fingers drummed on the desk. There is no us, Adam. Not anymore. Don't pretend like there is. He swallowed. I know. I know that. But I need to say it. You need to say it? I echoed, incredulous. You had 2 years to say everything, Adam. 2 years to apologize, to explain, to fix it. And yet, here you are, wet from the rain, looking like you're auditioning for forgiveness. His gaze fell to the floor. I wasn't ready. I didn't know how to face what I did. And seeing you like this. I can't just walk away again. I felt something cold twist in my chest. Anger, disbelief, a shadow of the pain I thought I had buried. You left me, I said slowly. Walked out of my life like I was nothing. And now you come here because, what? You feel guilty? Yes. His voice cracked, almost pleading. Yes, I do. And I want to explain. Please. I stared at him. My desk, the chair, the small stack of client files, all of it represented my life, rebuilt from the ruins he left behind. The thought of letting him into that space made my teeth grit. I'm not letting you in, Adam, I said. Not physically, not emotionally. Sit down. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he sank into the chair across from mine. Silence fell between us, heavy and almost suffocating. I could hear the faint drip of water from the ceiling vent, the distant honk of cars outside, the world moving on without either of us. You look different, he said finally, his eyes tracing the contours of my face. Stronger. I smiled faintly, but it didn't reach my eyes. I had to be. You left me with nothing. I either became stronger or stayed broken forever. And I chose to rise. He nodded, but the guilt didn't leave his face. I was a coward, Lena. I wasn't brave enough to face what I wanted, what I felt. You weren't brave, I corrected, voice low and sharp. You were selfish. You didn't leave because it was too hard, you left because someone else made you feel seen. That's the truth, Adam. Not some romanticized version of fear. He flinched at my words, but didn't speak. I continued, letting the pain and strength in my voice cut the room. You left me broken. And for 2 years, I tried to pick up the pieces alone. I went to therapy, I rebuilt my life, I started my own company. Every step I took was to remind myself that I didn't need you. That I could survive. That I could thrive. He looked at me, eyes wide, like he was seeing me for the first time. I never realized. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You never realized because you never cared enough to pay attention. But don't think this changes anything between us. You're here, Adam, but I'm not the girl who waited for you anymore. I don't beg. I don't hope. I don't forgive easily, certainly not when it's convenient for you. He swallowed hard. I know I don't deserve it. I wanted to be honest. Finally. I paused, letting his words hang in the air like a weight. Honest? You're telling me honesty is showing up uninvited, 2 years too late, hoping I'll feel something for you again? I'm not asking for that, he said quickly. I need to tell you how sorry I am. For every lie, every moment I made you doubt yourself, every time I walked away instead of staying. I closed my eyes for a second, the memories flooding back, the nights I cried alone, the times I questioned my worth, the nights I dreamed of him realizing his mistake and coming back. But I opened my eyes, steadier than I felt. You see, Adam, apologies don't undo the past. They don't erase the nights I cried or the opportunities you stole from me. And they certainly don't make me feel anything for you anymore. You had your chance. You threw it away. Tears glimmered in his eyes, and I felt the strange, familiar tug of empathy. But I pushed it down. This was not about him anymore. This was about me, my boundaries, my power, my peace. I never meant to hurt you like this, he whispered, voice cracking. You did. I let the word linger, heavy and undeniable. And that's the truth you have to live with, Adam. Not me. He looked away, shame and regret written across his face. I wish I could go back. Don't wish, I said sharply. You can't. And I won't be waiting anymore. The silence returned, thick and suffocating. I glanced at the window, the rain had stopped, leaving streaks of water running down the glass. The city looked calm outside, indifferent to the storm that had just passed in my office. He started, then stopped. I wanted to see if, maybe, I could make it right. You can't, I said, my voice soft now, but firm. You can't fix the past. And you can't touch the future I've built. You were a chapter in my life, Adam, not the book. And I'm not rewriting the ending for you. He looked down at his hands, silent. And in that moment, I realized how far I'd come. For the first time, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel hurt. I felt free. You should go, I said finally, standing. This isn't a conversation that will change anything. He rose slowly, and I could see the defeat in his posture, the once confident man reduced to a shadow of regret. I understand, he whispered. I'm sorry, Lena. Truly. I know, I said. Now leave. Please. He paused at the door, as if hoping for something, a smile, a glance, a hint of forgiveness. But I didn't give him anything. I didn't need to. Because I had already won. And as the door closed behind him, leaving only the quiet hum of my office and the faint smell of rain, I smiled to myself. The storm had passed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the woman I was meant to be, strong, unbroken, and untouchable. The next morning, I sat at my desk, staring at the small, velvet box tucked away in my drawer. I hadn't touched it in months, not since the night he left. I ran my fingers over its smooth surface, remembering the day I bought it. Adam had laughed when I first showed it to him. You don't need to spend that much, Lena. I had smiled, ignoring him. That ring wasn't about the price. It was about the promise. About us. And now? It was nothing. I opened the drawer fully and stared at it. The sunlight caught the metal, making it glint like a tiny star. I laughed quietly to myself. A promise that never belonged to me, a life that was never mine to keep. The day he left. I remember that day vividly. He stood in the middle of our apartment, holding a small box that I had been planning to hide until our anniversary. "I can't do this anymore," he said softly. I blinked, confused. "Do what?" "Us." "You." "Everything." I froze. "Everything?" "Yes." My fingers had been trembling as I opened the box, expecting something beautiful, a symbol of forever. Instead, I was met with his eyes, the ones that didn't see me anymore. "You're amazing, Lena. But I can't be what you want." The words tore through me like ice. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg, but the lump in my throat was too heavy. And then, the final blow. "I'm in love with someone else." I dropped the box. The ring tumbled onto the floor, glinting under the dim apartment light, untouched, unused, unwanted. That night, I cried alone, my reflection staring back at me like a stranger. Now. I picked up the ring, rolling it between my fingers. I had kept it not as a symbol of love, but as a reminder. A reminder of how easily someone could walk away. How fragile trust could be. How strong I needed to be. I didn't hear the knock at first. It was soft, hesitant, like it belonged to someone unsure if they should enter. "Lena?" I froze. "Adam." I tucked the ring back into the drawer and turned to face him. He stood there, coat wet from the rain outside, eyes tracing the familiar curves of my office. I heard you were back in the city," he said quietly. "I thought maybe we could talk." I raised an eyebrow. "Talk?" "Yes. About everything. I need to tell you." I laughed softly, bitterly. "Everything?" "Adam, everything is gone. What's left to say?" He hesitated, then stepped closer. "I didn't realize. I never realized what I lost until it was too late. And now you do," I said coldly. "Congratulations. That's called regret." He looked down at his feet, shame written across his face. "Lena. He cheated on me. Ryan." My fingers clenched into fists at the desk. "Karma," I thought. "Finally." "I didn't know what I had," he continued. "I thought leaving was the answer, but it wasn't. Everything I thought I wanted collapsed. And I fell apart." I remained silent. I didn't need to respond. He was confessing, and that was enough. I wanted you back," he whispered, almost too quietly for me to hear. "I thought maybe there was still a chance." I laughed, not cruelly, but with disbelief. "Adam, do you hear yourself? You left me. You broke me. You ran to someone else. And now you want a second chance?" He flinched. I didn't know what I had. I was blind. "You were selfish," I corrected. "Blindness is one thing. Choosing someone over me, that's something else entirely." Tears glimmered in his eyes, but I didn't feel the same pull I once did. I didn't ache anymore. "I kept the ring," I said softly, opening the drawer and letting him see it. "Not because I loved you, but as a reminder. A reminder of what I will never settle for again." He stared at it, jaw tightening. I didn't think it mattered to you anymore." "It mattered once," I admitted. "And it taught me everything I needed to know. About love. About myself. About strength." His gaze lingered on me, searching, as if trying to find the girl he once knew, the one who waited, who forgave, who begged. "She left me," he said finally. "And I deserved it." I nodded slowly. "Yes. You did. And now, you have to live with it." I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a small card, sliding it across the desk toward him. "You can't fix the past. But you can start somewhere." He picked it up, confusion etched across his face. "What is this?" "My therapist's number," I said calmly. "It helped me rebuild my life when I was broken. Maybe it can help you too." He stared at the card, a faint laugh escaping his lips, broken, startled, sad all at once. "You think therapy can fix what I ruined?" he asked. "It won't fix the past," I said. "But it can help you understand yourself. That's the first step. Understanding why you made the choices you did. Why you hurt me." He swallowed, his eyes softening. I wish I could undo it." I shook my head gently. "You can't. And I don't need you to. I needed to learn how to live without you, and now I can. The ring stays, Adam, as a reminder of the woman I refuse to let you destroy. That's all it is." He lowered his gaze to the floor, tears spilling quietly. "I'm sorry, Lena." "You should be," I said softly. "But your apology doesn't change anything. You can't step back into my life now. Not because I hate you, but because I've already rebuilt it." He nodded, defeated. "I understand." I watched him leave my office, the sound of his footsteps fading. The door closed behind him, leaving the faint smell of rain and the small glint of the ring catching the sunlight. I held it in my hand for a moment longer, then closed the drawer. Some things, like heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, could never be undone. But strength, clarity, and power? Those were mine. And I had claimed them all. The office felt colder that evening. I hadn't expected him to call, but the familiar ring of my phone announced exactly who it was. "Lena," Adam's voice trembled, quiet but insistent. "Can we meet?" I stared at the phone for a long moment, my fingers tightening around it. Part of me wanted to throw it across the room. Another part wanted to hear what he had to say. Finally, I whispered, "Fine. 10 minutes." He arrived soaked from the evening rain, hair plastered to his forehead again, eyes searching mine as if the world depended on my answer. "You look different," he said quietly, taking the seat across from me. "Stronger. I can see it in your eyes." I smiled faintly. "I had to be. You left me broken, Adam. I had two choices, stay in the ruins or rebuild. I chose the latter." He swallowed, voice low. I know I hurt you. I never meant to. You did. That's the truth. And it burned, Adam. It wasn't just pain, it was a fire that consumed me. Every day I woke up wondering if I was enough. If anything I did mattered. I didn't know," he whispered. "You didn't know?" I repeated sharply. "Or you didn't care?" "There's a difference, Adam. There's always a difference." He flinched, and I almost felt pity, almost. "You walked out of my life for another man," I continued, voice steady now. "You left me alone with my own doubts, my own tears, my own brokenness. And then you had the audacity to come back, wet from the rain, hoping I'd, what? Welcome you again?" He shook his head, guilt and shame twisting his features. "I didn't think. I was blind. I thought leaving would fix everything. That somehow I'd find happiness. I was wrong." "You were wrong," I agreed, softer now, almost wistful. "And you weren't the only one who suffered. I did too. For months, I lost myself. I drank to forget. I stayed up nights wondering what I did wrong. I blamed myself, Adam, when the truth was, you made your choice. Not me." He looked at me, the weight of remorse pressing down on him. I can't change the past." "No, you can't," I said. "But you can acknowledge it. Accept it. And maybe, learn from it." He nodded silently. I could see him struggling with the magnitude of everything he'd lost. "You ever loved me?" he asked suddenly, almost too quietly to hear. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "I did. I loved you with everything I had. Until you taught me not to." His eyes widened. "Taught you not to?" "Yes," I said, voice low, intimate even. "I loved you until the day you left. Until the words you whispered in someone else's arms destroyed the world I built around us. You taught me that love isn't always about devotion. Sometimes, love is survival. Love is strength. And sometimes, love is learning to walk away before someone hurts you again. His lips trembled. I'm sorry, Lena. Truly. I let him sit with the apology. Let him feel it. Not because I needed to forgive him, I didn't. Not yet. But because he needed to understand the consequences of his actions. You said I'd never compare, I murmured. Do you remember that? He nodded slowly. I do. And I was wrong. I never realized how much I underestimated you. I leaned back in my chair, staring at him through the dim light of the office. I didn't have to compare, Adam. I had to survive. I had to rebuild. And in the process, I became someone you can't touch anymore. Someone who doesn't beg to be chosen. Someone who refuses to let the past dictate her life. Tears glimmered in his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I saw the man who once claimed he loved me, terrified, remorseful, broken. But, he began, voice shaking. Don't you, still, feel something? I shook my head slowly. No. Not like that. I did love you. I probably always will, in a small, stubborn way. But that version of me, the one who waited, the one who kept the ring hidden in a sock drawer, is gone. She was weak. I am not. I don't need you to validate my worth anymore. He swallowed hard, pain etched across his face. I wish I could go back. Fix everything. You can't, I said firmly. You can't fix the past, Adam. And you can't step into the life I've built. That life belongs to me. And I won't dismantle it for anyone, not even you. The silence was thick. Rain pattered against the window, soft and persistent, as if echoing the storm that had passed between us. You made me realize, I continued, voice calmer now, that closure doesn't come from apologies. Closure comes from seeing someone who hurt you and realizing they no longer hold power over your heart. You left me. And I survived. I thrived. And now, I don't need your permission to live, Adam. He lowered his gaze, his hands clasped tightly together. I ruined everything, didn't I? No, I said softly. You made a choice. And I made mine. I chose to live. I chose myself. That's all that matters. He nodded slowly, defeat heavy in his posture. I don't deserve you. I smiled faintly, the kind that was gentle but final. No, you don't. But that's not my burden anymore. It's yours to carry. The weight of 2 years of pain, anger, and longing had finally lifted. The fire that burned inside me, old wounds that never healed, old scars that throbbed, now only fueled my strength. I loved you once, I said quietly. And maybe a small part of me always will. But that's not enough to let you back into my life. That version of me is gone. And the woman you see now, she doesn't need you. Not for love, not for closure, not for anything. His shoulders slumped, the fight drained from him. I felt no pity, only clarity. You deserve to heal too, I added gently, almost tenderly. But not with me. Go. Find yourself. Learn from your mistakes. And maybe, one day, you'll understand what it means to truly love someone without taking them for granted. He rose slowly, hesitated at the door, and then turned back. I hope you're happy, Lena. Truly. I am, I said firmly. I've never been more alive. More free. More, me. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving only the faint hum of the office, the lingering scent of rain, and the quiet knowledge that the past no longer had power over me. I sank into my chair, letting the silence wrap around me like a warm blanket. Old wounds don't bleed, they burn. And I had walked through the fire, emerged stronger, unbroken, and untouchable. I remember that night like it was yesterday, though it had been years. The apartment smelled faintly of takeout and despair. The dim light of the living room lamp barely illuminated the boxes that had become my walls, a fortress of sorrow built to contain the heartbreak she left behind. She stood in the doorway, calm, composed, her suitcase at her feet. I just don't feel anything with you anymore, Lena said softly, avoiding my eyes. I froze. My chest tightened, my heart felt as if it had been ripped from my body. What do you mean? I asked, voice shaking. We've planned, everything. She shrugged, looking everywhere but at me. I thought I did. But I don't. I feel nothing. And I need to leave. I swallowed hard. Leave? Lena, this is our life. We promised each other everything. We promised forever. I know, she said quietly. But promises don't matter if your heart isn't in it. I felt tears sting my eyes. Please, please don't do this. Stay. Just talk to me. We can fix it. She shook her head. It's not fixable. I've made my choice. And just like that, she walked away. Suitcase rolling behind her. My world shattered with every step she took toward the door. I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the empty doorway, listening to the echo of her departure. I felt smaller than I had ever felt before, helpless, broken, abandoned. Now, years later, the roles were reversed. Adam, the one who had shattered me once, stood in front of me. The rain had soaked him through, his coat dripping on my office floor. But he looked fragile, uncertain. Vulnerable. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted, voice quivering. I need to say something. I folded my arms, leaning against my desk. Go ahead. Say it. I hurt you, he whispered. I left when I shouldn't have. I can't believe how blind I was. I thought leaving would fix everything, but it didn't. I studied him quietly. This wasn't the man I had loved. This wasn't the man who held my heart like a fragile ornament. This was a man who had finally realized the consequences of his actions. You know what that feels like? I asked softly. Do you know what it feels like to be left, abandoned, to watch someone you love walk away while you sit frozen, powerless to stop it? His eyes met mine, a shadow of guilt in their depths. I think I'm beginning to understand. I shook my head, voice breaking slightly. I hope you do. Because that night, when Lena walked away, I wished I could have done something. Anything. But she was gone. And now, you're the one standing here, asking me for, what? Forgiveness? A second chance? No, he said quickly. Not a second chance. Just. I needed to tell you. I needed you to hear it. I nodded slowly. Good. Then you have. Now, leave. He flinched at my tone but didn't argue. I could see the shame and regret written on his face. It was a mirror of my own heartbreak from the past, the pain I had once felt, now reflected back at me. You've changed, he said, almost reverently. Stronger. I see it now. I had to, I replied. I had no other choice. You left me broken. And I had to rebuild, not for you, not because of you, but for me. His gaze dropped to the floor, guilt heavy in his posture. I ruined everything. You made a choice, I said firmly. And so did I. I chose to survive. To thrive. To become someone who doesn't wait for anyone to come back. Someone who doesn't beg, who doesn't break herself for love. That's me now. He swallowed, words failing him. I stood, walking slowly to the window. The city lights flickered outside, reflecting in the glass like 1,000 tiny reminders of the life I had built, a life he could never touch again. I wish I could go back, he murmured. You can't, I said softly. And I don't need you to. I needed to learn to live without you. And now I can. Silence fell, heavy and thick, the kind that holds all the things we cannot say aloud. You ever loved me? He asked suddenly, almost a whisper. I laughed softly, bitter and dry. I did. Until you left. Until your choices taught me the difference between love and survival. Love isn't always about devotion. Sometimes it's about recognizing when someone isn't right for you. And sometimes, love is walking away so you can find yourself. He flinched. I thought. I didn't realize. You didn't, I said gently, yet firmly. And that's why you're here now, years too late, learning what it means to lose someone truly. Tears glimmered in his eyes, but I didn't reach for him. I didn't move closer. I didn't let him touch the life I had built. I don't know if I deserve your forgiveness, he admitted. I'm not giving it, I said. Not for you. Not yet. Maybe never. Because forgiveness isn't about you, it's about me. And I've already forgiven myself for loving you, for trusting you, for believing in us. He nodded slowly, the weight of my words sinking in. I wish I had known. Then learn, I said softly. Learn from your mistakes. And don't make the same ones again. He swallowed, glancing at the door. I should go. Yes, I said. Go. And remember this moment, remember how it feels to see someone you broke, someone you abandoned, standing stronger than you ever imagined. He hesitated, as if hoping for something more, a sign, a glance, a shred of hope. But I gave him nothing. Because there was nothing left to give. I watched him leave, rain still streaking the windows, the echoes of his steps fading down the hallway. And in the quiet that followed, I finally exhaled. The night she walked away, years ago, had once felt like the end of my world. But now, the night he stood before me, broken and regretful, I realized it was not the end. Not at all. It was the beginning of something far greater, freedom. I sat back in my chair, the hum of the office filling the space, the city lights dancing outside my window. Old wounds don't bleed, they burn. And from those flames, I had risen. Stronger. Wiser. Untouchable. And for the first time, I knew I would never allow anyone to hold that fire over me again. The office felt unusually silent that evening. Adam sat across from me, fidgeting with the hem of his coat, eyes flicking nervously between the ring on my desk and my face. I could see the weight of every mistake he had ever made pressing down on him. For once, the tables had turned. He wasn't in control. I was. You came back for a reason, I said softly, leaning forward slightly. Not for closure, not for forgiveness. You came because you needed to understand what you lost. He swallowed hard, voice low. I thought leaving would make me happier. I thought he, Ryan, was what I needed. But everything I thought I wanted, it all collapsed. I let his words sink in. He looked smaller, fragile, almost childlike in his regret. The confidence he once wielded like a weapon was gone. And for the first time, I felt pity. Not for him, not really, for the person he could have been, if he'd only chosen differently. You believed the illusion, I said slowly, measuring each word. You believed leaving me for someone else would fix your happiness. But happiness isn't taken from someone else, Adam. It's built. And you tore down everything we had instead of building anything of your own. His gaze fell to the desk. I didn't realize. I was blinded. I didn't see it then, but now. Now what? I asked, my tone gentle but firm. Now I see you, he admitted. Stronger. More, complete. You didn't just survive. You thrived. And I was selfish. Yes, I said simply. Selfish. Blind. And cruel. He flinched at my words, and I let the silence linger. Let him sit in it. He deserved to feel every ounce of the consequences of his actions. You deserved better, he whispered finally, almost pleading. I tilted my head, meeting his eyes with calm clarity. No. You saw it. You just didn't value it. And now, you're standing here, powerless, realizing the truth. The power is no longer yours to take or give. That's mine. He swallowed. His hands tightened in his lap, as if trying to grasp something, anything, that could anchor him to the life he had lost. The shift is clear now, I continued. You're the one who is lost. You're the one left questioning choices you can't undo. And I am free. Free to live without the shadows of your mistakes haunting me. He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes, but I could see him catching it himself, realizing it wasn't meant to be returned. I thought I could come back, he admitted. I thought maybe there was a chance to fix this, To what? I asked softly. To step back into my life and expect me to erase all the pain you caused? That's not how it works, Adam. That's not how it ever worked. His jaw tightened, a flicker of anger passing across his features. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to do. You knew perfectly well, I said, voice steady. You chose someone else. You walked away. And now, years later, you're here hoping to reclaim something that no longer exists. That's the difference between us. I don't wait. I don't hope. I act. I rebuild. And I rise. He blinked, swallowing hard. I never realized. I thought I had all the time in the world. I thought I could come back, somehow make it right. You can't, I said softly. You can't. And you never could. Because love isn't about timing or excuses. Love is about respect, devotion, and the courage to stay. You lacked all three. I didn't. The silence between us was heavy, charged with the electricity of unspoken truths. He looked smaller, a boy trapped in the skin of a man who had once walked over my heart without remorse. You were right, he said finally. I was blind. And selfish. And now I understand the depth of what I lost. Good, I said simply. Because understanding won't bring it back. Recognition won't rebuild the years I spent healing. Apologies won't give you a second chance. You have to live with the consequences of your choices. And I get to live with the rewards of mine. He nodded, his face pale, guilt and regret etched into every line. I wish I had appreciated you. I wish I had seen. You did see, I corrected him. You just didn't value it. And now, that's the power you've lost. The power to influence my life. To control my happiness. That belongs to me now. His lips pressed into a thin line. I can't undo it. I know that. But, will you ever? No, I said firmly, cutting him off. There is no we anymore. There is no us. There is only me, who I am today, not who I was when you left. And that version of me doesn't need you. He looked down at his hands, defeated, the fight drained from him. I could see the desperation in his posture, the realization that the tables had completely turned. The power dynamic, once entirely in his hands, had shifted. And it was absolute. You see it now, don't you? I asked softly. The shift. I am no longer the one waiting. I am no longer the one broken. I am no longer yours to manipulate, to love, or to lose. That's mine, mine to own, mine to protect. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I do. I see it. And I regret everything. Good, I said, the corners of my mouth lifting slightly. You should. Because regret is the only thing you'll have from this. You'll have nothing else. No apologies, no second chances, no do-overs. Nothing can replace what you walked away from. Nothing can give you back what you destroyed. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I understand now. Truly. And now, I said, standing slowly, you leave. And I continue. You live with the weight of your choices. And I live free. Free from the past. Free from you. Free from the pain you caused. He hesitated at the door, the rain pattering softly against the glass outside. I hope you find happiness, he whispered, almost a prayer. I have, I said calmly. I've never been happier. Stronger. Freer. And it has nothing to do with you. He nodded, finally turning to go. The door clicked softly behind him, leaving me alone with the quiet hum of the office and the glow of the city lights. I walked slowly back to my desk, my hands brushing over the smooth surface of the ring box. It no longer represented longing or loss. It was a symbol of what I had endured and the woman I had become. The power shift was complete. The person who had once held my heart hostage was powerless. The woman who had been abandoned, broken, and betrayed was now in control of her life, her choices, and her destiny. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence wrap around me like a protective cloak. Old wounds don't bleed. They burn. And from the fire, I had risen. Stronger. Wiser. Untouchable. The night Adam admitted his mistakes, confessed his regrets, and finally saw the truth of what he lost, the final barrier between past and present shattered. I was no longer a victim of love or betrayal. I was a survivor. A conqueror. A woman who had claimed her life and refused to let anyone else take it from her. And in that office, with the rain softly drumming against the windows and the city lights flickering in the distance, I realized, this power, this strength, this clarity, it was mine forever. The office was quiet, the kind of silence that carried weight, heavy, patient, and knowing. Adam stood near the window, rain streaking the glass behind him, his eyes tracing patterns that weren't there. He turned slowly, as if uncertain whether to meet my gaze. "I came here," he said finally, voice low, hesitant, "not to ask for a second chance. Not for anything like that. I came to apologize." I studied him quietly, letting the words settle between us. I had waited for this moment, the moment when he would finally acknowledge the pain he had caused, the years he had wasted, the heartbreak he had left behind. "You were the only one who ever truly loved me," he continued, voice trembling. "And I ruined it. I didn't see it. I didn't appreciate it. And I lifted a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Yes, I know. And that is enough." "Enough?" he echoed, incredulous. You don't hate me? Don't you want revenge, closure, some kind of reckoning?" I shook my head slowly, letting the words float softly into the air. "No. I don't need revenge. I don't need closure from you. And I certainly don't need your permission to move on. The apology is yours, not mine. You needed to say it. Not because it will change anything, but because it is the truth, and truth deserves to be spoken." He blinked, tears glistening at the corners of his eyes. I don't deserve your forgiveness." I smiled faintly, a gentle, almost compassionate curve of my lips. "No. You don't. And I'm not giving it to you. Not yet. Not for you. But I forgive myself for ever letting you hold power over my life, for ever thinking I needed you to be complete. That forgiveness is mine, not yours." He flinched, as if struck, but remained silent, listening. "I loved you once," I continued, voice soft but firm. "And maybe a part of me always will. But that version of me, the one who waited, who hoped, who held her heart open to you, is gone. That woman is no longer in charge of my life. She was weak. I am strong. I am whole. And I don't need you to complete me." Adam swallowed hard. I wish I could take it back. I would do anything." "Anything?" I echoed. "You think anything can undo the years I spent rebuilding myself? You think your apologies erase the nights I cried, the therapy sessions I attended to piece myself together, the tears I hid from the world while I learned to love me?" He shook his head slowly, guilt and realization weighing on him like a physical burden. "You know," I said, leaning back in my chair, "for a long time, I believed love meant sacrifice. That it meant giving all of yourself to someone else. But that's not love. That's surrender. And I will never surrender to anyone again. Not to you. Not to anyone who fails to see my worth." His gaze fell, remorse evident in the way he fidgeted with the edge of his coat. I thought I was doing what was best. I thought leaving was better." "Better?" I asked softly, almost incredulously. "Leaving someone who loved you deeply, leaving them shattered, abandoned, to wander through the ruins you left behind. That was never better. That was cowardice. That was fear masquerading as choice. And now, years later, you finally see it. You finally understand what it means to hurt someone and face the consequences." His lips trembled. I do understand. Truly. And I'm so sorry. More than I can say. I nodded slowly. I know. And that's why I'm letting you leave with the truth, that what you did was wrong, that it caused pain, and that it changed both our lives. But you don't get to undo it. You don't get to step back in and rewrite the story. The story has moved on. And so have I. The room was silent except for the hum of the city outside, the faint dripping of rain against the windows, and the distant sound of tires on wet asphalt. The calm after a storm, both literal and emotional. I don't know what to say, he admitted finally. I never realized how much I lost. How much I hurt you. Say nothing, I interrupted gently. You've said enough. Your apology is noted. Your recognition of your mistakes is noted. And now, you leave. He hesitated, as if expecting more. As if hoping my forgiveness might come with a reprieve, a chance to reclaim what he lost. But I didn't move. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't give him hope. Because there was nothing left to give. I hope you find peace, he whispered, voice breaking, finally turning toward the door. I said calmly, voice steady. And I wish the same for you, eventually. But peace is earned, Adam. Not given. And you have a long road ahead. The click of the door echoed softly as he left, the sound final, irreversible. I let it linger for a moment, savoring the closure that wasn't about him, but about me. I walked to my desk, the familiar weight of the ring box in my drawer catching my attention. It wasn't a symbol of longing anymore. Not of regret. Not of loss. It was a reminder of what I endured and the strength I had gained. I opened it carefully, turning the ring between my fingers. Gold, polished, perfect in its simplicity. Once, it had symbolized love, promise, and a future I thought I wanted. Now, it symbolized something else entirely, survival, strength, and independence. I set it down, not as a memory of pain, but as a testament to the woman I had become. A woman who had lived through heartbreak and emerged unbroken. I leaned back, letting the silence of the office settle around me like a protective cloak. My chest was lighter than it had been in years. My heart no longer carried the weight of his mistakes. My mind was free from the echoes of lost time. The apology he gave me didn't heal me. His words didn't restore what he broke. But they didn't need to. I had healed myself. I had grown beyond the need for validation, beyond the need for closure from someone who had once held power over me. And in that moment, I understood something profoundly simple and beautiful: forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. It's for the one who endured, survived, and chose to rise from the ashes of love gone wrong. I smiled softly to myself. Not because I felt victorious. Not because I had won. But because I had finally reclaimed my life, my power, my heart. And it was mine, entirely, irrevocably, and without apology. I closed the ring box, letting the finality of the gesture sink in. There was no more room for regret. No more space for longing. Only freedom. The rain had stopped outside. Streetlights reflected in the wet pavement, glittering like 1,000 tiny stars. I walked to the window, taking in the quiet city below. The world moved on, indifferent, unchanging, and so had I. Old wounds don't bleed. They burn. And from those flames, I had emerged stronger, whole, and untouchable. Adam's apology, his presence, his regrets, they no longer mattered. The power of my life, my choices, my happiness was mine alone. And for the first time in years, I felt complete. No ghosts from the past could haunt me anymore. No shadows of lost love could dictate my future. No apologies, no regrets, no second chances, nothing could touch the life I had built, the woman I had become. I breathed deeply, the city's hum filling my lungs, the calm of the office wrapping around me. And I smiled. Because I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone. I needed myself, and that was enough. The apology he offered didn't change my past, but it didn't need to. I had already changed my future. I had survived. I had grown. I had risen. And the night ended not with heartbreak, but with freedom. The office was quiet, the kind of silence that settled over a space like a blanket, heavy, soft, yet somehow comforting. I sat at my desk, the faint glow of the city lights spilling through the blinds, reflecting off the polished surface where my life now rested. The ring from years ago caught my eye, tucked safely in its box. Beside it lay a folded envelope, the letter I had written to Lena, the one I never sent. I picked it up slowly, tracing the creases with my fingers. I remembered the night I wrote it, the words flowing from a heart broken, desperate, and still clinging to hope. A confession of love, a plea for understanding, a glimpse of who I was before everything fell apart. I hesitated, thumb resting against the paper. The scent of ink, faintly metallic, brought back memories I had spent years burying. I opened the letter, unfolding it carefully, as if the fragile paper held a piece of my soul. "Lena," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if it will ever matter. But I need to tell you. I loved you. I loved you more than I thought possible, more than I knew existed inside me. And I forgive you, not for you, but for me. Because I need to be free of the weight of what I feel for you. I need to live, to breathe, to rebuild what you left behind." I paused, voice barely above a whisper as I read the words aloud. "I don't know why you left. I don't know why you chose someone else. But I hope you find what you're looking for. And I hope, one day, I can look back and remember the love we shared not as pain, but as a chapter that made me who I am." I let out a long breath, feeling the emotions that had been dormant for years stir inside me. Sadness, nostalgia, and a faint trace of longing. But there was no bitterness. No anger. Only clarity. I folded the letter again, placing it carefully on the desk beside the ring. My gaze lingered on both items, remnants of a past I had survived. I knew what I had to do. I grabbed a lighter from the drawer, feeling its weight, the heat of the flame as it flickered to life. The letter trembled in my hand as I held it over the flame. I watched the edges catch, curling and blackening. The smell of burning paper filled the air, acrid but strangely cleansing. I read the words one last time as they turned to ash. "I forgive you. I need to be free." And then, they were gone. The ashes swirled in the air before settling on the desk, drifting toward the floor. I watched the remnants, a quiet smile forming. It wasn't just a letter burning, it was the weight of my past, the heartbreak, the regret, the longing, all dissolving into nothingness. I picked up the ring, turning it slowly in my hand. Gold, polished, perfect in its simplicity. Once, it had been a symbol of love I thought would last forever. Now, it was a symbol of survival, of the strength I had forged from the ruins. I placed the ring back in its box and closed it gently. Not as a memory of loss, but as a marker of growth. A reminder of the life I had rebuilt, the woman I had become. The phone buzzed softly, breaking the stillness. I ignored it, letting the quiet stretch, savoring the moment. I walked to the window, gazing at the city below. Lights twinkled like stars, reflecting on the wet streets from last night's rain. The world moved on, indifferent and unchanging. And so had I. I remembered the nights I had spent alone, therapy sessions, long walks, silent tears in empty rooms. Every moment of pain had led me here. Every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every whispered apology I never received, all of it had forged me into someone stronger, someone unbroken. The letter had been a key to my past, a reminder of the love that had once defined me. Burning it was not an act of anger or revenge. It was an act of liberation. I leaned back, closing my eyes, letting the quiet fill me. The ashes of the letter scattered on the desk were like ghosts of a time that no longer existed. And yet, I didn't feel sorrow. I didn't feel loss. I felt complete. I thought about Adam, his apology, his regret. I had let him leave with his words, with the acknowledgement of his mistakes. But his presence, his confessions, and the ghosts of the past no longer held power over me. The fire had consumed more than paper. It had consumed the hold the past had over my heart. I opened my eyes, taking in the office, the city lights, the desk, the ring, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. Everything I had rebuilt was mine. Every choice, every step forward, every piece of strength I had gained was untouchable. I walked slowly back to my desk, picking up the ashes of the letter. They slipped through my fingers like sand, carried away by the faint draft from the window. I realized then that closure isn't about forgetting. It isn't about pretending the pain never existed. Closure is about outgrowing it. It's about acknowledging the past, learning from it, and choosing to rise beyond it. I smiled softly, a quiet, reflective smile. The ring, the letter, the memories, all of it belonged to a version of me that no longer existed. The woman who had waited, hoped, and suffered was gone. The woman who now stood, strong, confident, whole, was the one who mattered. I stood, stretching my arms above my head, feeling the freedom in the movement. My life was mine to shape, mine to claim, and mine to protect. No one could take that from me. Not Adam, not Lena, not anyone. The ashes on the floor were like a canvas, blank, empty, and ready for whatever came next. And I was ready. I opened the window slightly, letting the breeze flow through, carrying away the last remnants of the past. The city below moved on, and so would I. I walked back to the desk, closing the drawer where the ring rested. A quiet peace settled over me, a calm I hadn't felt in years. And in that peace, I realized, the past was gone. The pain, the heartbreak, the love that had once defined me, all of it had burned away. And from those ashes, I had risen. Stronger. Wiser. Untouchable. The letter, the ring, the apologies, the regrets, they were all symbols of a journey I had completed. A journey that had taken me through fire, through pain, through heartbreak, and brought me to a place of clarity and freedom. I smiled again, this time with certainty. The storm had passed. The fire had cleansed. And I was finally free. I turned from the window, the city lights reflecting in my eyes, and walked toward the door of the office. The night was quiet, the air crisp. I stepped out, leaving the past behind, walking into a future I was ready to embrace. The letter was gone. The pain was gone. And the woman I had become, the one who had survived, who had grown, who had risen from the ashes, would never be defined by anyone else's choices again. I was free. And that freedom was everything. Sunlight spilled into the office, soft and golden, painting the room in warmth I hadn't noticed in years. It filtered through the blinds, catching on the polished surfaces of my desk and the edges of the ring box I had tucked away. The city outside buzzed with life, cars honking, people moving, completely unaware of the quiet revolutions that had occurred behind the glass walls of my office. The air was still, carrying only the faint scent of coffee and the faint memory of Lena's perfume. She was gone. Completely gone. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean, bright, and full of possibility. I walked to the window, leaning against the cool glass, watching the streets below. The people moved with purpose, each carrying their own stories, their own regrets, their own joys. I felt oddly connected to them and yet separate, like someone who had crossed a river that others hadn't yet noticed existed. I had emerged on the other side changed, free, and entirely mine. I turned back to my desk, letting my eyes settle on the objects that had symbolized so much over the years, the ring, the ashes of the letter, and the quiet order I had created in this space. Each item told a story, not of loss, but of transformation. The phone buzzed softly on the desk. I glanced at it. Messages from colleagues, reminders of meetings, mundane notes from a life that had once felt small, confined, and limited by someone else's choices. But now, it felt expansive. Infinite. Mine to shape. I picked up the ring box and turned it in my hands, feeling the weight, the solidity, the permanence. I remembered the nights of longing, the days of heartbreak, the moments when I had thought I would never rebuild. And yet, here I was. Stronger. Wiser. Untouchable. I opened the drawer beside me and placed it back carefully, closing it with a soft click. The ring was no longer a symbol of lost love or unfulfilled promises. It was a reminder of resilience, of the life I had fought to reclaim, and of the woman I had become. The memories of Lena's apology, Adam's regrets, and the letter that had burned to ashes played in my mind, not as wounds, but as lessons. Each moment had carved the path that led me here, to this morning, to this quiet triumph. I leaned back in my chair, letting the sun warm my face. The office, my sanctuary, felt alive. Every object, every corner, every detail of this space was infused with the energy of my survival. I had taken something that had once been broken and made it whole again. The hum of the city outside was a reminder that life continued, relentless, unyielding, and full of promise. And so would I. I picked up my coffee cup, the warmth seeping into my hands, grounding me in the present. I took a slow sip, savoring the moment, letting the rich bitterness remind me that life was complex, layered, and beautiful in its contradictions. The ring sat in the drawer beside me, a silent witness to my journey. I imagined the past versions of myself, the one who had waited, who had hoped, who had cried herself to sleep, standing somewhere behind me, watching. And I smiled, softly, knowing that she had survived. She had endured. She had risen. The office phone rang, sharp and insistent. I let it go to voicemail. Nothing, not even the urgency of the world outside, could pull me from this moment. I had earned this peace. I had built it with my own hands, brick by brick, tear by tear. I opened the blinds wider, letting the sunlight flood the room. Every beam felt like a cleansing force, washing away the remnants of past pain, doubt, and longing. I could feel it seeping into my bones, into my very being, filling every corner of my heart with clarity and resolve. I glanced at the window across the street, where pedestrians hurried by, oblivious to the quiet victory that had unfolded here. I imagined their lives, their struggles, their joys. And I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for my own survival, but for the journey that had brought me to this point. I reached for the notebook I kept on my desk, the one where I recorded my thoughts, my reflections, my dreams. I opened it to a blank page, pen in hand, ready to write a new chapter. A chapter untainted by heartbreak, unshadowed by regret, and unclaimed by anyone else. Today, I wrote, my hand steady, I am free. Free from the past, free from the pain, free from anyone who thought they could define my worth. I am mine. And that is enough. The words felt heavy with truth, each letter a declaration, a vow, a promise to myself. I wrote longer, letting the thoughts flow, unfiltered, unburdened. I wrote of resilience, of growth, of the quiet power that came from surviving and thriving. Time seemed to slow, the office bathed in sunlight and quiet energy. I realized that this was the first morning I had truly felt alive in years, not because someone loved me, not because I had closure from another, but because I had finally come home to myself. I thought about the moments that had led me here, the nights of despair, the tears, the therapy sessions, the long walks through rain-soaked streets, the quiet determination that had pushed me forward even when I felt I couldn't move. Every step, every choice, every heartbeat had brought me to this morning. The phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. I didn't need distraction. I didn't need interruption. I needed this moment, this clarity, this quiet triumph, this realization that I was finally free. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. The streets glistened from last night's rain, lights reflecting like scattered stars. People moved, oblivious to the inner revolutions that had taken place above them, unaware of the quiet power of someone who had survived and grown beyond their past. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, grounding me in the present. The storm had passed, the fire had burned, and the ashes had scattered. And in their place, I had found something unshakable, myself. I walked back to my desk, sitting down with a calm I had not known in years. The ring, the letter, the apologies, the regrets, all were now symbols of a journey completed, a life reclaimed. The office felt alive, vibrant, and infused with possibility. I realized that this morning was not an ending, but a beginning. A beginning of a life unclaimed by others, untethered by past heartbreak, and illuminated by the knowledge that I had emerged stronger than I had ever been. I smiled softly, closing my eyes for a moment, letting the sunlight warm my face, letting the quiet energy of the room fill me completely. I was whole. I was free. I was untouchable. And in that moment, I understood something profoundly simple and beautiful: happiness is not given. It is built. It is claimed. It is earned. And I had earned mine, brick by brick, tear by tear, moment by moment. I stood, walking to the door of the office, taking one last look at the space that had witnessed my transformation. The ring, the letter, the memories, they would remain, quiet reminders of the journey that had brought me here. But they no longer defined me. I did. I stepped out into the morning light, feeling the warmth on my skin, the breeze in my hair, and the freedom in my chest. The city stretched out before me, endless possibilities waiting to be claimed. And I was ready. I had survived heartbreak, betrayal, and loss. I had faced ghosts, endured fire, and emerged stronger than I ever imagined. And now, walking into the day, into life, I was not just surviving. I was thriving. The morning after the storm was not just a moment in time. It was a declaration. A promise. A testament to the power of resilience, self-love, and the quiet strength that comes from rising when everything seems lost. I smiled, a full, radiant smile that reached my eyes and filled my heart. The storm had passed. The fire had burned. The ashes had scattered. And from them, I had risen. Whole. Free. Untouchable. And the world, bright and infinite before me, felt like mine to claim.